we go is right. What's up, and welcome into a new year with Quick Slants 2024. So Jerod Mayo had some things to get off his chest on Tuesday morning, answering a question posed to him about a recent report from the Boston Sports Journal, which says that Mayo was rubbing some people the wrong way.
Honestly, when that report came out, my brother sent it to me. It was more hurtful than anything. I found it to be, the timing is a little bit weird in my opinion. And if that was the case, I feel like this would have been leaked sometime earlier. At the same time, I try to treat everyone the same way. And I will say this, I thought about it for a while. When people talk about rubbing people the wrong way, obviously, sometimes, that's part of the job of being a leader, is to rub people the wrong way. It actually helped me. It kind of triggered a period of self-reflection. And I know it's recent. I think it's like a week old at this point, but it triggered an opportunity for self-reflection. And we all have blind spots, and maybe that's one of my blind spots. But, at the end of the day, hopefully whoever put that story out is man or woman enough to bring it to my attention to have a conversation.
All right, now full disclosure, which you already know because you've watched Quick Slants for years. Jerod Mayo and I worked together for several years right here on this show, and I like him. But even if I disliked him, I'd still like the way he dealt with this. He was honest, he was open, he took a question about a report and answered that question. He was reflective. He could have just said, I'm getting ready for the Jets. Don't read the papers, don't have any idea how to use Snapface or the internet, and all that would be a lie. And to me, whether or not Mayo ends up being the head coach or if Bill Belichick comes back, regardless, there's a point at which all the Machiavellian backstabbing and cloak and dagger crap that's been going on since Bill Parcells blew into town in 1993, where it really needs to stop. And the past few years, they are as bad as it's ever been. This time, someone threw a rock and they hid their hand with this ambiguous allegation, right? So without checking the wind and doing the geometry on how to respond, Jerod Mayo answered honestly. What a concept, Andrew Callahan from the Boston Herald. What'd you think of this? You texted me mid-answer and said, are you getting this?
I did. I said, I think we could use this tonight, and not even from a media standpoint, just a human interest. I got three things on this, one of which you already said. We should all be rooting for this, following this team, covering this team, rooting for this team, for openness and honesty. You want to know who you're covering. You want to know who you're rooting for. Imagine how every interaction in your life would be better if, say, fights didn't start with, I'm fine. But instead, they told you this is hurtful, this is how it made me feel, and this is what I'm going to do next, as Jerod said there. The second thing is he made a point about the timing of this report, which I think was really a good one. It was adept. Why is this coming up now? If I've been rubbing people the wrong way, you would have heard this in September or October. But the timing of his response here, Tom, I think is key too, because school's out soon. There's no harm in going double birds down the highway to everyone that he didn't like or might have leaked this report. He's secure personally, he's secure professionally. The third thing is this. If he wants to be a head coach one day, he cannot make a habit of this, because when Belichick deflects all questions about reports, what he's saying is that does not matter. He's not giving it any power. Mm-hmm. By doing this, Jerod gave his agitators, his detractors, in-house and outside, more power. You cannot be reactive in a leadership role, but one time like this, I think it was a great answer.
Yeah, and we'll see, again, how it pans out and how it fleshes out over the next week or so, but at least it sends an initial directive as to this is what Jerod might say if he feels pushed into a corner where he needs to respond to something. Meanwhile, we got a game plan. We got a lot of show ahead of you. End game. How's the approach to the final game against the Jets going to be? We got a draft debate. Does a win really hurt the Patriots that badly? Demoralizing. It's a bad year to be a great defense in Foxborough, and we have polls and comments. But right now, it's time for Quick Fire. It's presented by your local New England Honda dealers. Bill Belichick asked this morning about his future on the Greg Hill Show on WEEI.
Whatever success I have had, I've tried to go about my job the same way every week. Win, lose, good years, bad years, whatever they are, just each week, get ready to go for that week, do the best you can to help your team win. And after that game, move on to the next one. Yeah, I'm committed to the team that I'm coaching right now. The players that are here, they deserve my best every day, and that's what I'm going to give them.
I have been digesting Bill Belichick press conferences for nearly 25 years. There's thousands of them I've been in on. And I can tell right away by the tone of his voice the approach he's taking. What did you read into the tone of Bill in this phone call?
Well, first of all, how's that for your gut health? That's a lot of Bill down here.
Whole lot of build up.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm going to echo what I just said about Jerod. I appreciated this answer. It wasn't as open and personally honest. We know Belichick is never going to do that with the media, but he explained why up until this point, every single time, big picture questions about the future, what he's been thinking when he says, we're on to the Bills, we're on to the Dolphins, and now the Jets. And you appreciate that insight because there's no harm in that honesty. If this is what I'm thinking, this is why I'm doing it, here it is, like it or don't, but that's the why, as opposed to pretending his focus on the Jets somehow precludes him from listening to a question and giving an honest answer. It was good. Maybe we just need more conference call Bill. There was no Zoom. He seemed much more relaxed.
Well, it's funny, too, because the tone, the actual voice and inflection of it, he doesn't always attain that. So even if the content of what he says isn't good, even if it's even mildly jocular, you're like, oh, that was pretty good. Then you play it back, and you're like, there was nothing there. Meanwhile, Bill O'Brien, he's usually pretty good on these and gives us some insight on whether or not the pocket passer is dead.
The ability to, have the athleticism to move around and with the athleticism of the defensive lines that you're facing, being able to make off schedule plays is important. It's important. And, I think we have guys, I wouldn't call our guys pocket passers. I think they have the ability to move.
All right, Andrew, there's some guys who can move but shouldn't, and there's some guys who move and should. The Patriots have two guys who can move but probably shouldn't unless in a pinch. The Patriots are going to have a top 5 pick. When they select, should they be trying to find one of these guys that Bill O'Brien's referring to?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can't find an elite quarterback in the league who can't make those off-schedule plays, which doesn't even mean throwing on the run. It's just saying, hey, when the defense plays perfect defense, what's your plan B? And I would equate this, you're a hoops guy, to point guards. How many elite point guards in the NBA right now can't shoot? Basically none of them, because you have to be so perfect in the pocket, threading those passes downfield or threading bounce passes to be effective in that role, orchestrating an offense, driving a team, driving, winning. You need to be able to have a plan B when things break down as a quarterback or a point guard.
Meanwhile, speaking of breakdowns, this was David Tepper, the Carolina Panthers owner, this past weekend. Now watch. Just fined $300,000 by the league, which I believe that's light. He threw a bucket of ice, relax, Curran, a cup of ice at a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and then he flipped the cup and stormed away. I still think he got off light with a $300,000 fine.
I agree. That is chump change to these owners. You can look up the numbers on Tepper. What I would do is this instead. First of all, he's banned from attending the Panthers season finale, and he must go back to Jacksonville and watch their season finale. Same suite, same team, same location. That's the league's punishment. It's 1 week. Get it over with.
I love that. That's genius. All right. Meanwhile, Bill Belichick was asked about Jerod Mayo today. Because when we look at this Patriots team, there's a lot of conversation. Wow, the Patriots are competing real hard. They're competing real hard for Bill Belichick. But it's all from the defense. And somebody has to be selling this defense on the fact that, yeah, the offense might score about 6 points. You better be on your toes and playing to the highest level. And I would wonder if a lot of that is thanks to Jerod Mayo.
Yeah, I think all of our defensive coaches have done a really good job. Collectively they work together. It's hard to single anybody out because they work so well together as a total group.
All right, so how do you divvy up the credit pie over there on the defensive side of the ball? And was Bill sidestepping, tossing any specific credit to Jerod?
See, I'm going to be lame and split the difference here because I think the guy who's running the meetings, who's installing the packages in the game plan, Jerod, deserves the lion's share of credit. But in speaking with players this year and coaches over the last 12 to 16 months, guys like DeMarcus Covington do not get enough credit for how good they are in their role. That's a guy who interviewed for a defensive coordinator job with Arizona last winter. Steve Belichick, Brian Belichick, he talked to players. They go, they're as sharp as they come. And so Jerod, again, encompasses all of that. But I think that is a good defensive staff. And the play this year, last year, the year before, bears that out.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, again, in the incestuous palace intrigue nature of the New England Patriots, if it unfolds with Bill Belichick leaving, Jerod Mayo perhaps staying and ascending, where do the Belichick boys go?
Oh, with Bill. No question about it. I mean, come on. Jerod might want them to stay, but I think you could find a safeties coach, an outside linebackers coach a little bit easily if you're Jerod. I mean, I think they might feel some tug and pull.
What are they going to sit there off screen at CBS and watch Bill doing hits? Because there's a chance he ends up there.
Yeah, maybe, or take a year off and then they stay and go with him. Like,
They're too young to do that.
I mean, look, if you're going to trade Foxborough for another NFL market, how many markets are losing out to Foxborough, Massachusetts, even if this has been home? L.A., pretty nice. D.C., too. Chicago, apparently off the table. Maybe not Charlotte.
All I'm
Maybe
saying
up
is
that
Jerod and Steve have a good thing going on. If Bill isn't going someplace else, or Steve wants to say, you know what, I kind of like it here.
Yeah, I mean, he could. They made a great team. So I think if you're a Patriots fan, you root for him to stay together, however things go with Bill.
All right, meanwhile, Bailey Zappi, let's do a check-in on him. Here he was Sunday after the game talking about wouldas and couldas.
I mean, if you take away those 4 turnovers, what happens, who knows? Can't go back, can't change it. Just got to move on, got to fix the mistakes and get ready for, another great team, another great defense in the Jets.
That's got to be the quote of the year.
Yeah, look, it's like me looking at my dating life. And if you just take away the 4 crazy exes and just look at my wife, I made out pretty good. And I made out great, by the way, getting married this past year. But look, there's no universe in which you can just erase the 4 worst mistakes from a football game and pretend like that's representative of what actually happened or in any part of our lives, work, whatever. Like, that's just crazy.
That was the ultimate. Other than that, how did you like the play, Mrs. Lincoln? All right, time now for From the Stands. Today's poll results are presented by Shaw's Perfecting the Art of Fresh. A lot of talk this week about the Patriots and the merits of them losing and making sure they stay in the top 3. How passionate are you, Patriots fan, about the Patriots draft position? 4,000 respondents, 52.2% of which said they were highly friggin' passionate about it. 30.6% said they were interested, not crazy, so that's 82% of your respondents. 13% said, well, whatever. And then 4.3% said they could not care any less. Hector said, I'm excited, but at the same time, I'm a little scared that Bill might be in total control again and will butcher the draft like he has in recent years. City of Champs. Hey, it's not just losing the top 2 pick. We lose 4 or 5 spots each round. Good point, City. Jane, why wouldn't we want to gain every possible advantage as we strive to fix the worst offensive roster in the league? Jane is the best. Curb, 410. Being highly passionate means you have a crystal ball. Less than 50% of the quarterbacks drafted in the first round make it as a start of their second contract. Something like 17% become long-term starters. It's really not that important. Curb, I don't hate your point. Oh, here I am. Meanwhile, what do you think of those responses? I mean, we're going to get to this a little bit later in the show, but people are very, very, very emotive on this topic.
First of all, I'm worried for Jane's voice. That was gravelly. That was deep. I hope she gets that checked out. It's a little tough there, Tommy. You did her wrong. I'm with Curb at the end. I think that's the right outlook. I said this last night at BST. Anyone freaking out about the difference between pick 3 and 4, granted, in certain years that could be a big difference, is acting like we've forgotten what happens in every draft 2 or 3 years later, when half of these guys bust out. And all of that is to say, if the Patriots end up beating the Jets and land at 4 or 5, which are the most likely outcomes here, as opposed to 3, you can still move up. The guy might fall to you anyway. Life is not going to be over for the Patriots draft that they win on Sunday.
Absolutely not. You're sitting there looking at Jaden Daniels or Marvin Harrison or Joe Alt.
Michael Penix.
Growth potential. Brought to you by Dr. Matthew Lepresti. Look younger, feel younger, get your hair back with Leonard Hair Transplant Associates. Let's leave this up for a second. This is the scoring for and against for the Patriots in terms of touchdowns. Offensively, they've scored so far this year 25 touchdowns and had 15 field goals. That's 40 scoring drives. You do the math. Just go back 2 years. They had 48 touchdowns and 36 field goals. That's insane. Even in 2020, 2019, those seasons didn't even come close. And look on the other side, meanwhile. We understand the Patriots defense has been very good this year, right? 32 touchdowns, 28 field goals. Look how good they were in 2019. 20 touchdowns, 17 field goals. That's 37 total scores. This year, we're already at 62. Bringing out a my slant. Watch out! And the point to me is, what a waste. The Patriots have been so outstanding on defense that even if they just had somewhat of a representative offense, they could have been in the playoffs. The AFC is wide friggin' open right now. And they could have, if they put together an offense that could score. They've been shut out 4 times, or at least gone without a touchdown 4 different times. If they could have put something on the field, They might be right now a 9 or 10 win team going into the final week of the season, but they weren't able to do that. I'm going to amplify my point by going back to that 2019 season with Tom Brady. Now, do we remember the 2019 Patriots defense as being one of the best we've ever seen? Not really. But again, they only allowed 20 touchdowns and 17 field goals, 37 scoring drives, as opposed to this year where they've allowed 60 scoring drives so far. The difference this year and that year was the quarterback. There's a lot less heat on your defense when you have a quarterback who's going to attain outstanding field position more often than not. Not going to lead the league in 3 and outs. Going to have some time of possession. Not going to throw pick sixes. All of these things enter into it. And to me, it's fascinating when you look at those numbers and see just how inept the Patriots offense has been. Andrew, when I said that the Patriots could have been a double-digit win team, or that they had wins all over the place if they just played like a Bill Belichick team should, I still don't think I was wrong.
I think you are, but
wrong?
I'm going 8 to 9 wins.
Okay.
And that's where I was before the season. That's where we all were. Vegas put it at 7.5. You look at the one-score games. You can't pretend like all of them should have been wins. But in most seasons, this is a 5, 6, 7-win team. And it just hasn't been because of the offense. And I'm so glad you brought up that 2019 season, because what were the biggest issues with that offense? You mentioned wasn't the quarterback, wasn't running back. Tight end wasn't great. It was receiver and offensive tackle. And that's the worst part about this. Coming into this season, going into most of the last 4 seasons, you could look at those positions and say, these are problematic. And the Patriots tried to solve them that year, training for Mohamed Sanu, like they tried to sign Juju Smith-Schuster this year, and it wasn't good enough. Remember Marshall Newhouse? Great guy. That was an experience every week at right tackle, him trying to block for Brady, just like it's been this year with Vidarian Lowe.
It's funny, yeah, I totally forgot about that. I mean, that's Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon just putting chips on low-value players who've been cast aside who might be pretty talented. Meanwhile, this year you don't put chips on a guy who is a proven commodity in Jacoby Myers, and you say, boy, that looks like a steep price tag for the DeAndre Hopkins. Why don't we just go with Juju? I mean, you can't swing a dead cat without whacking it into another moronic decision on the offensive side of the ball. Let's go to some coaching sound. Jerod Mayo today was asked by the Herald's Andrew Callahan. He's a bald fella. He was asked what he's learned this year.
One thing I did learn this year is just the resilience of the people in this building, whether you're talking about players or coaches. The resilience is definitely a reflection of the top with the Kraft family and also Coach Belichick. And I didn't appreciate that as much until he went through this year. So it's one thing I learned.
Good question, good answer. I don't know why I pointed that out.
Sounds like a handsome fella.
Well, maybe because the whole segment's brought to you by Dr. Lopresti, and I don't know if you're too far gone.
You got to hook me up with him, by the way. I do the show too much.
We'll see what we can do. I mean, look at this mop, right? Although I only kind of had the baldy up top. Meanwhile, Jerod is, it's going to be fascinating to see how this fleshes out, because as he said to me, when people talked about him rubbing them the wrong way, I think a lot of it's probably related to perception. And Jerod Mayo is not like a normal assistant coach who's been in the salt mines for 10 years and going from 20,000 to 30,000 to 40,000. He played in the league. He is, as he said to me, pre-CBA top 10 pick and got a second contract, which the Patriots don't generally do. So he doesn't feel the same stressors that an assistant coach might, which he shouldn't be blamed for, but I could see how it could really feed into a perception that, well, he thinks he's got it made.
Yeah, and I look at this as obviously a helpful experience. I mean, I think that goes for every single player and coach. It's a feather in Bill Belichick's cap. It's not only just they're playing hard for the team still, all in the same direction. And that's so hard when you look at other teams around the league, when clearly you've been knocked out of the playoffs. The coach might be on the way out, and players are going, what am I fighting for? They're still doing that for each other. I will say, though, this goes the other way. Concerns about Jerod Mayo are that lack of experience. And for a coach who's never gone through a season like this until now, you go, how is he going to react in that situation? We now know how he reacted as the linebackers coach, but it's a much bigger deal and a different pressure as a head coach. So if people want to wait and have him get another year or two under his belt, that answer explains why.
And it's also interesting when you think about Mayo perhaps convincing that defense to, don't worry about what's happening on the other side of the ball, keep playing. So it all feeds into the Patriots being on an accelerated timetable in some ways. Wednesday, meanwhile, let's take a look at the draft order as it stands right now. The Patriots are third in that draft order. Selecting third, they have the Jets. That's the worst team that anybody will play among the teams who are playing, who currently are in the top 7, whatever you're trying to say, Tom, fine. Here's what the points. There's an NFL trade value chart, and each pick is given a trade value in terms of points. So the Patriots have the opportunity to pick anywhere from 2 to 7. Notice, though, once you get past 4, it really doesn't make that big a difference going from 4 to 5. It is a big deal if you go from 2 to 4, but to go from 3 to 4, it's not that big a deal. So, Andrew, I ask you, as people hand-wring about the pick location, what's your take on where the Patriots wind up in the draft and how much people should hand-wring over it?
Look, it goes without saying it's in the best interest of the franchise to get the number 2 overall pick, the number 3. I think the Patriots are going to win on Sunday, and I wouldn't freak out about it because there's virtually no chance they fall below 5. 5, as you noted, pretty close to 4, not that far from 2. The trade chart, though, 2 people I want to shout out. Rich Hill, Pat's Pulpit, has a modernized version of this chart that is baked into all the history of all the trades of how teams typically value the first overall pick. This year is complicated by the fact that the Bears, who will have that pick, might stick with Justin Fields, which makes it harder for the Patriots to jump up because they're going to be jumping into an auction with other quarterback-needy teams, and that gets a little hairy.